Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady. We are here today with an amazing guest, Tamina Watson. Hey Tamina, how you doing?
Hi Wendy, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored.
Oh, thank you. Immigration is your, expertise, and we need it. That's for sure. Because as we mentioned in the beginning, in our first series of this 5-series podcast, is that we don't have enough humans that are able to work either because of age or whatever it might be. But we, in the United States, we are lacking the staff shortage in every industry that there is. I want to hear from you maybe about some success stories, of course, no names, right? That you were able to make an amazing difference with the employer and the employee, and kumbaya, everybody's happy, and hopefully they're coming back to you saying, yes, help us more, get more immigrants in to work for us, because we cannot fill these positions with the Americans that are here already. So any success stories you want to share?
Oh my gosh, the question becomes, which one do I share? But I'll share one of the recent ones. You know, I live in Seattle, and Seattle, like San Francisco and some other big cities, have gone through a lot of turmoil where the downtown cities have been affected, businesses have closed, businesses have been affected with not having staff, so they're not open long enough. And it's a little scary to walk down the street, depending on which city you're in. Mm-hmm. But I have been saying that immigrants can revitalize our cities. And so recently, one of my clients had bought one of the businesses, a long-established 30-year-old business that has been serving the downtown Seattle community with coffee and ice cream and all sorts. And I remember taking my children when they were very small. But downtown Seattle, really needs help. And this client bought this business just recently, and it took a little while to get the business paperwork and all of that done. And we are so happy to say that that client's business, that was about $1 million or just over, we got the case approved. It was an E2 visa, and we didn't get any questions. But the reason I share this one is this particular client had to go through various strategies of COVID lockdowns. Do we do this inside the US, outside the US? Do we buy it now? How do we close it? When is the deadline coming? There were so many competing priorities that we had to juggle. And this owner, a beloved person who was the seller in this situation, has really got a name for this particular business. So we needed to make sure the business sustainably grows once he takes over. So there are so many considerations, but we got that successful. And I love this business and this client because he's going to be hiring American workers to continue to grow this business. And it's an economic development strategy for businesses and cities that are suffering. A lot of businesses that are suffering can have injection of investments from foreign investors. So this is one of my most recent success stories that I want people to know about. Because if you're wondering why cities are not coming out of this COVID problem, how can we help them recover? This immigration is another avenue to do that.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this, just kind of off the cuff here, because I'm sure some of our listeners are wondering, okay, how much is this going to cost me? So, and I know this is not an easy question that I'm throwing at you, but like on the low end and then maybe on the high end and then the average end, how much does it typically cost, an employer to get either a temporary or a permanent worker through the immigration process? Let's just say with all things are wonderful and they line up and there's no question that this person can, achieve some kind of visa. What is the average cost?
Wendy, I am so grateful you asked that question. There isn't a simple answer, but I'm going to give you a range. So no matter what kind of visa you are applying for, and let's say you're a tech company hiring somebody on an H-1B visa or an O visa, these are some, or an L visa. These are some of the most common work visas. The attorney's fees, there are two types of visa costs. One is for the lawyer's fees, and that can range from like $4,500 to $6,000, $7,000, depending on, the type of visa. And then the government has its own fees. And the reason your question is so important is because just as the new year began, the Department of Homeland Security released proposals to increase fees substantively. Currently, if you are filing an H-1B visa, the basic form, the I-129, which is the foundational form for any work visa, agricultural industry, or the training visa, or an H-1B, or whatever, the I-129 fee currently is $460. It is going to be raised to about $1,100 and something. And we don't know when that's going to happen. We think, most lawyers think, it will happen sometime early March, mid-March, before the H-1B lottery season begins, because the H-1B lottery registration, for those that don't know, H-1B visas are the most used for skilled professionals, and they're given out once a year. And it is literally a lottery. The government gives out 85,000 visas. Last year, they received about 500,000. To get your name in the lottery, last year, it was $10. The proposal is to collect $210 per lottery application. Okay. That's a significant hike for each person. So if an employer is filing 5 applications, instead of $50, they're going to have to spend over $1,000 easily just to have the chance of being selected. So the fees are absolutely an important consideration, because on average, they must likely have to budget for about $7,000. It might not be that much, give or take, but if you budget, that's what I would say you budget, and just be open-minded. And that's for a slow processing, meaning you file it and the government will pick it up when they're ready. But if you want to get it expedited, that's $2,500. That's an optional fee.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit more and my view on that in our next session of this series. So we're moving on to session 4. I want to talk a little bit about the continued cost here, and folks, come back, because I have a very different viewpoint on it being expensive. I don't think it is. And I also want to talk about COVID and how that affected workplace visa. So we will be right back in a minute.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.